Okay, welcome back to the AuthorSpeakerPodcast.org. I'm Steve Siebold, your host, and today I want to talk about something, a couple things that are really important, really basic. Not going to make this too long of an episode because they're pretty basic things, but they're not used that often except by professional speakers. It seems like the academic way of coaching, speaking, and speech writing is quite a bit different than when you're getting paid to do it. It's a little bit different. It's got to be better. I mean, bottom line. I guess you might as well just say it the way it is. You got to be better. And I put this out on my YouTube channel as well as the Public Speakers blog. If you want to, we have a video blog I've been doing for 15 years called publicspeakersblog.com. publicspeakersblog.com. It's a great URL, of course. I've had it for so long. That's the only I couldn't get it today. It's so hard to get those good names now, but I've had it for so long. publicspeakersblog.com. It's a free video blog. I put out some things, of course, about professional speaking, that type of thing. And I put this on my publicspeakersblog.com and also my YouTube channel a couple weeks ago, within the last couple of weeks, and it really got some people talking and that type of thing, so I thought I might do it here on the podcast. If you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, it's just Steve Siebold Channel. Just go to YouTube and type in Steve Siebold Channel. Siebold's S-I-E-B-O-L-D. Steve Siebold Channel, and you can subscribe. And we put different things out on all these different platforms. That's kind of the way it is today. And so we do the podcast and the blog and the YouTube channel and, Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. There's so many of these platforms. But I try to put different things out on all the different platforms. But I want to talk about this because it's really important. So the topic today is how to start a speech like a professional speaker. How to start a speech and then how to end a speech. Pretty simple stuff, but a lot of people don't do it. And so I thought I'd mention this because it seemed to gain some traction on my YouTube channel and the Public Speakers blog, like I said last week. So how do you start a speech? Well, first of all, I should frame this up to say all of my, I would say 95% of it, at least, of my recommendations are not mine. This comes from the Bill Gove Speech Workshop, the Bill Gove system. Bill Gove was the father of professional speaking. I know I've talked to him about a lot. If you've been around the podcast for a while, I've talked about him a lot. He was the best, in my opinion, the master keynote speaker of all time. Certainly the best in American history, one of them, and one of the greats of all time worldwide. He's won every award you could win. I met him when he was 85 years old. I was 32, and we became fast friends just overnight. I've been asked all over the world about how a 32-year-old guy gets into business with an 85-year-old, legend, and we made it work until the day he died. For 5 years, we traveled all over the world speaking, and we just got along. Bill thought he was 32 and I was 32. And we talked like we were 32 and we just had a lot of fun. He was just a great guy, but he was also a genius. No question about that. And he had this system that he developed, for the Bill Gove Speech Workshop and for his career as a speaker. And he developed in the 1940s, and it came from different people. And you come to the Bill Gove Speech Workshop, and if you're a graduate, you know what I'm talking about. But I won't go into it now because it's different. It's almost a different topic. But bottom line, my point was I didn't make this up. I'm not smart enough to make this stuff up. Bill Gove was the master. So he learned this particular piece from his mentor, which is Dr. Kenneth McFarland. Dr. Kenneth McFarland, who was known as the Dean of American Speakers. Just one of the great orators of all time. He was the protege of William Jennings Bryan, who ran for president of the United States 3 times. The lineage is legendary. So what Dr. Kenneth McFarland said taught Bill Gove when he was his mentor in the 1940s. He said, Bill, start a speech like you're in the middle of the speech. So he would walk on stage and show. I was just in Chicago the other day, and the guy walks down the street and he says, "Hey, Dr. Ken, how you doing? I saw you speak last week in St. Louis," whatever it was, And he would start it like he was into it, as opposed to, "I'm really glad to be here. It's fantastic. Isn't Dubuque a great town? In February, it's 19 below zero, and glad to see the JCs are here and the Rotarians and the Kiwanians and, all and Dr. So-and-so." And they do all these preliminary things. And Dr. McFarland said, don't do that. No, obviously there are exceptions, right? If you're in a formal speech, if you're addressing the United Nations, you probably can't do this, okay? So if you're at a wedding and you're giving a toast, you don't do that. I mean, there are different things, but different situations, they call for different approaches. And this is not the only way to do it either, by the way. You know, speaking, especially I think professional speaking, but I guess public speaking just in general, is really a form of art. So it's not like this is the only way to do it. You know, it's like writing songs. I remember one time seeing Paul McCartney, who I've loved since I was a little kid. You know, the Beatles, of course, grew up with the Beatles. And Paul McCartney's 80 years old now, and he's still playing. I saw him a couple of years ago in Miami. I was in the second row with Dawn, my wife, and we watched him. And he was like a little kid. I mean, people say, why were you in the first row? Why were you in the second row? Because I'm too cheap to buy first row tickets. They were insanely expensive. But second row, I thought I could swing. So I did. And we sat in the second row. But we were 10 feet from him. And he'd go down and he on the main stage and he'd play bass guitar and some guitar, and then he'd run up and play the piano on the top floor. And he ran up and down these stairs for 3 hours in Miami from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. like a little kid. And he was he was just fantastic. But my point of saying, bringing up Paul McCartney was that they've asked him in interviews. I've seen him on YouTube and TV, of course, for my whole life. And they say, what is it that comes first, Paul? You're the greatest. You and Lennon were probably arguably the greatest songwriters of all time. Two of the most successful, one of the most successful teams of all time, if not the most successful songwriting team of all time. Is it the words that come first, Paul, or is it the music? And he kind of laughs and he says, I don't know. I don't really know. Sometimes I hear the music in my head and sometimes I write the words. And then he tells the story sometimes about Yesterday, the song Yesterday, All My Troubles. That song, it's a classic song. And he said, it came to me in a dream. It just came to me in a dream. He said, I literally dreamed it. I woke up and I wrote it down. And it became an anthem, in the United States and around the world. And so he says, I don't know, is my point. So my point is that Paul McCartney doesn't know whether the music comes first or the words come first. Then I don't think I can fairly say, and Bill Gove would back me up if he was alive, with this, that Dr. Kenneth McFarland's strategy of starting a speech like you're in the middle of a speech is the only way to do it. It's not, of course. But I'll tell you this, as someone who traveled the world for the last 25 years as a professional speaker, it's a hell of a good strategy. You might have different strategies for different times, of course, but I tell you, consider it and try it if you haven't, because it's good. I use it most of the time. I mean, most of the time when I speak, I use that strategy. I don't always use it, but depending on what I'm into, what kind of setup it is and, whatever. It's just different situations you get into as a speaker. But as a general rule, start a speech like you're in the middle of a speech. Try it out and see what you think. It's really a good strategy. And the second one, of course, is how to end a speech. How do you end a speech like a pro? Well, is there one way to do it? No, of course, there's not. But there are a couple different philosophies about this. And, some people say, well, the people that are very linear, I think, would say, well, the only things that the audience remembers are the first things you say and the last thing you say. And that's it. They don't remember the middle. Well, if they don't remember the middle, your speech wasn't very good. Okay, so I don't buy that. Not as a pro. I'm sorry. That's just not true. If you're good and you're talking to the right audience for your topic, they're going to remember the speech. It's not just the beginning and the end. Okay, it's not a book report in high school. If it's good, they're going to remember it. So I would disagree with that one. But people say different things. And then sometimes people say, well, thank you is a good way to end a speech. And other people say, well, the audience should really be thanking the speaker because the speaker's doing all the work. Sometimes for free. If you're speaking at the Rotary Club or the Kiwanis Club or the Men's Club or the Chamber of Commerce, something like that, it's free. So, technically speaking, the audience should be thanking the speaker. So don't say thank you, just walk off. Oh, geez. Okay. Think of it this way. You go to the McDonald's drive-thru and try this out if you haven't tried this. I'm sure you have, but maybe you're not thinking about it. I do because I'm twisted like that and I think about this stuff all the time because I can't turn it off. You go to a drive-thru like McDonald's or Burger King or something and the kid hands you the burgers through the window and you say thank you. And they say, you're welcome. Okay, well, technically, the kid should be thanking you for patronizing the establishment, right? They should be thanking you for being a customer. But they say, you're welcome, like they're doing you a favor, okay? You know why? Because they don't train them. You go to Chick-fil-A, on the other hand, by the way, if you know Chick-fil-A, they'll say, my pleasure every single time. You know why? Because they train the Chick-fil-A kids or the people that work there. You say thank you, and they'll say, my pleasure. And they'll thank you as well. And so it's a little bit different. So the way to end a speech as a pro is saying thank you, in my opinion. And that's the Bill Gove system. That's what Bill Gove taught the industry. Thank you. Not complicated. Okay? And when you say thank you, mean thank you. I'll tell you what, as someone who made a living doing this for a quarter of a century and traveled all over the world and had a pretty good life doing it, I feel gratitude to the audience. I'm glad they're there, because if they're not there, I got to get a real job, and I'm unemployable at this point, So I'm glad they're there. I want them to be there. I'm glad I feel grateful that they're listening to me. Okay. Yeah, they're paying me. Okay. Most of the time, unless it's some free speech or something. I don't give too many of those, but once in a while for charity or, a Rotary Club or something like that for a good cause. But typically, you're getting paid. But I appreciate it. There's just something about saying thank you. It's like, what do you teach a kid? Hey, if nothing else, teach them to say please and thank you and have good, polite manners. And you can get around the world with good manners, because it affects people. It affects audiences. It affects other people when you're polite. I would thank them. And I don't think you can go wrong thanking them twice. It's simple, but again, people make the case, the audience should be thanking the speaker, and you don't have to thank the audience. Okay, well, maybe. But I'm thanking them. And I would strongly recommend even, that you do that, because you really can't go wrong with saying thank you. It's like saying please. Like in what situation does please not appropriate? It just hardly is. Never. It's always appropriate, because it's a way of being polite. It's a way of interacting with people that makes them feel a certain way about you, and it's all good. So I would thank them at the end of the speech, and that's it. You don't have to have any big ending. You say, it's the big ending. You don't need a big ending. Just say thank you and walk off the stage. And if you say it twice, that's not so bad either. Okay, so that's again, there are other ways to do it. Are there situations where I wouldn't do it that exact way? Not too many, frankly. But yeah, there are situations. It's not the only way to do it, but just consider that this is the Bill Gove system. Again, that's why I framed it up in the context of the Bill Gove system, because it's the most successful system in the history of professional speaking. Okay, so it's a pretty good source. It's like Harvard. It's not the only source, but it's probably the best. Certainly one of them. Okay, so that's how to start a speech and end a speech. Just some ideas about that. Again, if you want to see this on video or see any of the other videos I have, go to my YouTube channel, Steve Siebold. Go to YouTube and type in Steve Siebold channel, and then you can subscribe to the channel and keep up with our videos. And the other one is the publicspeakersblog.com, and you can see our video blog. Okay, so with that, I appreciate you guys listening to the show. We'll see you next time.